Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. That way, you'll always stay connected to our stories and never miss the next adventure. The thing about Galactic Station Olympus 9, and really any structure designed to house 300 distinct species with wildly different atmospheric requirements, gravitational preferences, and personal space bubbles, is that security checkpoints are less about actual security and more about preventing lawsuits. Or, in galactic terms, preventing interstellar incidents that could spark trade wars, cultural boycotts, or the occasional planetary bombardment. Which is why Security Officer Gormish, all 800 pounds of rhinoceros-adjacent bulk and bureaucratic devotion, took his job very, very seriously. So when Finn, human, maintenance division, usually unremarkable, stumbled through checkpoint Gamma 6, looking like he'd been shoved into an industrial shredder and then used as a scratching post, Gormish did what any reasonable security officer would do. He hit the panic button. "Halt!" Gormish's voice boomed through his translator unit, which made the word sound less like a command and more like a small explosion. His massive, three-fingered hand slammed down on the console, triggering lockdown protocols that sealed every entrance within 50 meters. "Do not move, human! Medical emergency in progress!" Finn stopped mid-step, blinking in confusion. "What? No, I'm fine." "You are bleeding from multiple lacerations," Gormish thundered, already moving around the checkpoint barrier with surprising speed for someone built like a tank. "Your uniform has been compromised. There are bite marks on your shoulder." The last part came out slightly higher pitched, which was impressive given that Gritani vocal cords could shatter glass at the right frequency. "Yeah, but..." "Emergency medical to checkpoint Gamma 6. Repeat, emergency medical. Possible hostile encounter. Injury assessment required." Gormish was already scanning Finn with a handheld diagnostic unit, which beeped in what sounded like electronic distress. Finn sighed, raising his scratched arms in a gesture of surrender that probably looked more concerning given the state of his shredded sleeves. "Seriously, I'm okay. It's not what it looks like." "It looks like you were attacked by something with claws and teeth," Gormish interrupted, his small dark eyes narrowing with concern. "Station protocols are clear. Any personnel displaying signs of physical trauma must be evaluated and the source of injury identified and neutralized." "Neutralized?" Finn's eyebrows shot up. "Nobody needs to neutralize anything." But Gormish wasn't listening anymore. He was too busy cordoning off the area with holographic warning tape and muttering into his comm unit about potential security breaches and the need for armed backup. This, Finn reflected, as he stood there covered in scratches, like some kind of badly wrapped present, was going to be a long day. Medical Officer Falnit arrived within 90 seconds, which was impressive considering she had to navigate 3 corridors, on 8 legs while carrying an emergency response kit that was roughly half her body size. The Nixery were spider-like in the way that made humans instinctively check the ceiling before entering a room. But Falnit had the kind of brisk, no-nonsense demeanor that transcended species barriers. She took one look at Finn and made a clicking sound that the translator rendered as, "Oh, for the love of..." "Multiple dermal abrasions, puncture wounds consistent with predatory dentition, severe uniform damage." Falnit's scanner hummed as she circled Finn, her 8 eyes blinking in asynchronous patterns that suggested she was processing data faster than her translator could keep up. "Human, what attacked you?" "Nothing attacked me," Finn said, trying for what he hoped was a reassuring smile. It probably didn't help that he had a scratch running down his cheek. "I was just playing," he finished weakly. Silence. Gormish and Falnit exchanged a look. which was a feat of interspecies communication, since one had eyes on the front of his head and the other had them distributed around her entire skull. Playing, Gormish repeated slowly, as if testing the word for hidden meanings. Yes. Playing what exactly? Falnit's mandibles twitched in what might have been concern, or possibly the Nixry equivalent of a raised eyebrow. Just, you know, regular playing. Regular playing does not typically result in this level of tissue damage, Falnit said, running another scan. These wounds required significant force. The bite marks suggest a jaw pressure of at least 800 psi. They were being gentle, Finn protested. They? Gormish's hand went to his sidearm, a weapon that looked like it could stop a small shuttle. There were multiple attackers? Not attackers, just, look, can we not make this a whole thing? But it was already a whole thing. The kind of thing that involved Gormish sending a priority alert to Station Command, which meant that within 5 minutes, Commander Rovic himself was slithering through the checkpoint with the kind of expression that suggested someone was about to have a very bad day. Rovic was Mlquan, octopus adjacent, with skin that shifted through colors based on mood, and about a dozen tentacles that could multitask like nobody's business. Right now, his skin was doing something between angry red and concerned purple, which created a sort of bureaucratic magenta. "Report," he said, his translator somehow managing to convey both authority and exasperation. Gormish snapped to attention. "Sir, human maintenance worker discovered with extensive injuries consistent with predatory attack. Subject claims incident was playing, but refuses to provide details. Recommend full station security sweep and—" "I was playing with some cubs," Finn blurted out, because apparently his sense of self-preservation had gone on vacation. That's it. That's the whole story. Another silence, this one somehow louder than the first. Rovic's tentacles coiled in what was definitely the Mlquan version of, "You have got to be kidding me." "Cubs. You were playing with cubs." "Yes." "What species of cubs?" And here it was. The moment where this whole situation went from embarrassing to diplomatically catastrophic. Finn swallowed. "Kixon." The color drained from Rovic's skin so fast, he went from magenta to bone white in under a second. Gormish made a choking sound. Falnit's scanner clattered to the floor. "Kixon," Rovic repeated, his voice very, very quiet. "Yes." "You were playing with Kixon cubs." "Yes." "The cubs belonging to Ambassador Enrala and her mate Giacono." "Ah, yes." Rovic's tentacles began twitching in a pattern that suggested he was either having a seizure or cycling through every curse word in 15 languages. "The Kixon delegation. The apex predator species from the Huntress cluster. The ones who are here for high-level diplomatic negotiations that could determine trade agreements for the next 50 cycles." "Those Kixons." Finn nodded miserably. "Security," Rovic said, his skin now cycling through colors so fast he looked like a malfunctioning holosign. "Review surveillance footage from the Kixon delegation quarters immediately. Medical, full examination. I want toxicology, genetic material analysis, everything. And someone get me Ambassador Enrala. Now." "Sir, the Kixon quarters are in the restricted diplomatic wing," Gormish said carefully. "Surveillance is limited due to privacy protocols." "Then get me what we have, and find out how a maintenance worker got access to a restricted area in the first place." Rovic's tentacles were now gesturing so wildly they were creating their own weather system. "If there's been a security breach—" "There wasn't a breach," Finn said. "I had authorization. I was fixing the atmospheric regulator in their quarters." And somehow that involved what, exactly? Wrestling with juvenile apex predators? It wasn't wrestling. It was playing. Human. Rovic's skin flashed something that might have been threatening black. Kixon cubs are not pets. They are not domesticated. They are born with hunting instincts that make most species adults look like prey. Their bite force at 6 months can crack alloy plating. Their claws can shred reinforced fabric like tissue paper. He gestured at Finn's shredded uniform. As clearly demonstrated. They were very nice about it, Finn offered. Gormish made another choking sound. Nice, Rovic said flatly. The cubs were nice, while mauling you. They weren't mauling me. We were having fun. Fun. The commander's skin was now a color that probably didn't exist in nature and definitely didn't appear in any mood chart. Station security protocols are now elevated to code yellow. Nobody enters or exits the diplomatic wing until we sort this out. Falnit, keep the human in medical observation. Gormish, with me. We're going to have a conversation with Ambassador Nirala. Is that really necessary? Finn asked. I mean, nothing bad happened. Nothing bad? Rovic's translator actually glitched for a second, producing a sound like a dying computer. Human, you are covered in injuries that would hospitalize most species. You engaged in unsupervised contact with one of the galaxy's most dangerous juvenile predators. And you did this in quarters belonging to a diplomatic delegation whose cultural protocols we are still trying to understand. If Ambassador Nrala thinks we allowed harm to come to her offspring are fine. I'm the one who got scratched. Which is exactly the problem. Rovic was fully gesticulating now, tentacles everywhere. Do you have any idea what happens if the Kixons think we put their cubs in a situation where they could hurt someone? The diplomatic fallout alone. He cut himself off, skin cycling back to a determined purple. Medical observation. Now, we'll sort this out. Falnit gently guided Finn toward the medical bay, with 4 of her legs, while the other 4 gathered her equipment. Come along, human. Let's get you properly examined before the commander has an aneurysm. This is ridiculous, Finn muttered, but he went. Behind them, Rovic was already barking orders into his comm unit. Words like diplomatic incident and potential treaty violation and why is it always the humans floating through the air like bad omens? Gormish stood at his checkpoint, staring at the scratched, bitten, generally disheveled human being led away to medical, and wondered, not for the first time, why he hadn't taken that nice, quiet job offer monitoring asteroid mining operations in the Outer Rim. At least asteroids didn't play with apex predators, and didn't call it fun. The universe, Gormish reflected, had a terrible sense of humor. The diplomatic wing of Galactic Station Olympus 9 was designed with one principle in mind: privacy, which meant reinforced walls, restricted access, and enough sensor-dampening technology to make surveillance experts weep into their monitoring equipment. Which also meant that when Commander Rovic arrived at the Kixon delegation quarters with Gormish and a nervous security detail in tow, he had absolutely no idea what he was walking into. The doors opened with a soft hiss, revealing a space that had been modified to suit Kixon environmental preferences. Warmer than standard station temperature, with elevated platforms and what looked like climbing structures built into the walls. The lighting was dim. Kixons had excellent night vision and found standard illumination painfully bright. And standing in the center of it all was Ambassador Nrala. 9 feet of sleek, silver-furred apex predator, with amber eyes that could track movement most species couldn't even perceive. Her ears, tufted and mobile, swiveled toward the entrance before the doors had fully opened, and when she turned to face them, every member of the security detail took an involuntary step backward. Kixons were built for hunting. Every line of Nrala's body spoke to generations of evolutionary perfection. The kind of predator that didn't need technology to dominate an environment, because nature had already provided everything necessary. Retractable claws, powerful muscles, senses that could detect heartbeats from across a room. And right now, those amber eyes were fixed on Rovic, with an expression that suggested she was deciding whether he was worth her time. "Commander," she said, her voice a low purr that the translator rendered as polite, but carried undertones of barely contained power. "This is unexpected. Our next scheduled meeting is not until—" Ambassador Nrala. Rovic's tentacles coiled in what he hoped was a respectful but firm gesture. "We need to discuss an incident involving one of our maintenance personnel." Her ears twitched forward. "Incident?" "A human named Finn was discovered with significant injuries. He claims these injuries occurred in your quarters." The temperature in the room seemed to drop about 10 degrees. Nrala's tail, thick and expressive, lashed once, a gesture that made the security detail reach for their weapons. "You are suggesting," Nrala said, each word very carefully enunciated, "that someone in my delegation attacked a member of your staff?" "I'm suggesting we need to understand what happened." "What happened?" a new voice rumbled from deeper in the quarters, "is apparently something worth interrupting our rest cycle to discuss." Giacomo emerged from what must have been a sleeping area, and if Nrala was intimidating, her mate was terrifying. Larger, with darker fur marked by old scars that spoke of a lifetime of combat, Giacomo moved with the casual confidence of someone who had never encountered a problem that couldn't be solved with claws and teeth. "My mate and I," Nrala continued, her tone now edged with something dangerous, "have been nothing but cooperative during these negotiations. We have followed every protocol, observed every cultural courtesy, despite the fact that most species on this station look at us like we might eat them at any moment." Her lips pulled back slightly, revealing teeth that could absolutely make good on that threat. "And now you arrive with armed guards to accuse us of attacking your personnel." "Nobody is making accusations," Rovic started. "Then why are your guards reaching for their weapons?" It was true. Gormish and the others had unconsciously shifted into defensive positions, hands hovering near sidearms that would be useless against Kixons at close range anyway. "Stand down," Rovic ordered quietly. Then, to Nrala, "We're simply trying to understand the situation. The human, Finn, was found covered in scratches and bite marks. He stated he was playing with your cubs." Nrala and Giacomo exchanged a glance, the kind of wordless communication that came from years of partnership. "Our cubs," Giacomo said slowly, "have been confined to quarters for the duration of this diplomatic mission. They are supervised at all times by either myself or my mate. They have had no unsupervised contact with station personnel. Except," Nrala added, her eyes narrowing, "for the maintenance worker who came to repair our atmospheric systems 3 days ago." "Finn," Rovic said. "He did not provide a name. But yes, a human. Young, dark hair, seemed remarkably unconcerned about being in close proximity to my family." Her tail swished again. "Is this human claiming my cubs attacked him?" "He's claiming he was playing with them." Silence stretched out, broken only by the soft hum of environmental systems. Then Giacomo made a sound that the translator struggled with, something between a cough and a growl that might have been laughter. "Playing? That's what he said. With our cubs. Yes, our cubs, Giacomo repeated, who have been taught since birth that unfamiliar aliens are potential threats, who bare their teeth at anyone who approaches too quickly, who have made 3 separate security officers refuse to enter our quarters for equipment checks. Your cubs were aggressive toward station personnel? Rovic's skin flashed concerned purple. Not aggressive, Enrala corrected. Defensive. There is a difference. Cubs protect their territory. It's instinct. She paused. They have certainly never played with any alien species, even ones we've known for years. And yet this human is covered in injuries consistent with cub interaction. Gortmish interjected, finding his voice. Scratches, bite marks. Show me, Enrala said abruptly. I'm sorry? Show me this human. I want to see these injuries. Rovic's tentacles coiled uncertainly. He's in medical observation. Then we go to medical. Enrala was already moving toward the door, Giacomo falling into step beside her. If my cubs harmed someone, I need to assess the situation. And if they didn't? Her amber eyes fixed on Rovic with an intensity that made his skin cycle through 3 colors at once. Then we need to discuss why you're wasting my time with false accusations. There was no arguing with that tone. Within minutes, the entire party was moving through the station corridors. 2 massive Kixon diplomats, 1 increasingly flustered Malquan commander, and a security detail that looked like they were escorting death itself to a meeting. Medical Bay 3 was not designed to hold this many people, or, more accurately, this many large carnivores. Falnit took one look at the incoming delegation and immediately began rearranging equipment to create more space, her 8 legs moving in controlled panic. Finn sat on an examination table, now wearing a medical gown because his uniform had been confiscated for evidence. The scratches looked even more dramatic against the pale blue fabric. Long red lines across his arms, smaller marks on his neck, a particularly impressive set of what were definitely bite marks on his shoulder. He looked up as everyone entered, and his face went through an impressive series of expressions: surprise, recognition, embarrassment, and finally resigned acceptance of his fate. "Oh," he said. "Hi." Nirala stopped 3 feet from the examination table, her ears forward in full attention mode. She studied Finn with the kind of focus usually reserved for prey assessment, taking in every scratch, every mark, every torn piece of skin. Then she inhaled deeply, scenting the air. Giacomo did the same, and both Kixons went very, very still. "These injuries," Nirala said quietly, "smell like my cubs." "Told you," Finn muttered, "but there's no fear scent, no distress markers, no pain indicators." She leaned closer, and Finn, to his credit, didn't flinch, even though he was now within easy striking distance of a predator that could kill him without effort. "You smell like you enjoyed yourself." "It was fun," Finn said, and the sheer audacity of that statement made Gormish make his 3rd choking sound of the day. Nirala's tail swished in what might have been confusion. "You played with our cubs, willingly." "Well, yeah, they were bored." "They're always bored," Giacomo said. "That doesn't mean we let random aliens entertain them. It's dangerous." "For the cubs or for me?" "Both." Rovic's tentacles were gesturing frantically now, trying to regain control of the situation. "Perhaps we could all sit down and discuss exactly what happened." "No," Enrala interrupted, still staring at Finn. "I want to hear this from him. Human." Finn, tell me exactly what happened with my cubs. Every detail." And Finn, who apparently had no sense of self-preservation and possibly no understanding of diplomatic protocol, grinned. "Well," he said, It started with a laser pointer. 3 days earlier, Finn had arrived at the Kixon quarters with a toolbox, a work order for atmospheric regulator maintenance, and absolutely no idea his life was about to get significantly more complicated. The door had opened to reveal Enrala, who'd given him the kind of look that suggested she was evaluating his nutritional value. "The atmospheric system," she'd said without preamble. "Yes, ma'am. Should take about an hour, maybe 2 if the filtration arrays need recalibration. My mate and I have meetings. The cubs will be here." Not a question, just a statement of fact delivered in a tone that suggested this was somehow Finn's problem now. "That's fine. I'll stay out of their way." Enrala's ears had twitched. Amusement, maybe, or possibly pity for his ignorance. Good luck with that. And then she'd left, followed by Giacomo, and Finn found himself alone in Kixon quarters with the distinct feeling of being watched. 3 pairs of eyes stared at him from an elevated platform near the ceiling. Large eyes, luminous eyes, eyes attached to creatures about the size of oversized house cats, but definitely not built like anything domestic. The cubs. They had the same basic body plan as their parents. Feline, quadrupedal, covered in fur that seemed to shift between silver and darker gray depending on the light. But where Enrala and Giacomo moved with predatory grace, the cubs moved with the chaotic energy of juveniles who hadn't quite figured out how their own bodies worked yet. All long limbs and oversized paws and ears that seemed too big for their heads. And they were staring at Finn like he was the most interesting thing they'd seen in weeks. "Hey there," Finn said, because talking to animals was apparently hardwired into human DNA, regardless of whether those animals could understand or potentially disembowel you. "I'm just here to fix some stuff. Don't mind me." The cubs didn't respond, couldn't respond, since they were too young for translator implants, but they tracked his every movement as he set up his equipment and opened the access panel for the atmospheric regulator. Finn had grown up with cats, multiple cats. He recognized that particular quality of attention, the way they followed his hands with laser focus, the slight wiggle before a pounce. "You 3 look bored," he said conversationally, running diagnostics on the filtration system. "Parents probably don't let you do much, huh? Too dangerous? Too many breakable diplomats wandering around?" One of the cubs, the smallest one with slightly paler fur, made a sound somewhere between a chirp and a growl. "Yeah, I get it. Being stuck inside is rough." The diagnostics beeped. Filtration arrays needed cleaning, which meant he'd be here for at least 90 minutes. Finn settled in to work, very aware that 3 pairs of eyes continued watching his every move. 15 minutes in, the smallest cub descended from the platform with surprising stealth, moving close enough that Finn could feel body heat radiating from fur. "Hi," he said, not looking directly. Another thing he'd learned from cats. Never stare. It's aggressive. "You're a curious one, huh?" A wet nose touched his elbow, sniffing, investigating, determining threat level and possibly flavor profile. "I'm not food," Finn informed the cub. "Mostly carbon and water. Probably taste terrible." The nose withdrew, replaced by the sensation of something rubbing against his arm. Scent marking, claiming territory. The universal feline declaration of, "This is mine now." By the time Finn finished with the first filtration array, all 3 cubs had descended and were investigating him with the thorough intensity of tiny scientists. They sniffed his tools, batted at his jacket, and made various chirping sounds that probably meant something in cub language, but just sounded adorable to human ears. The smallest one, Finn mentally dubbed her Pix because she kept trying to steal his pixel calibrator, seemed fascinated by anything shiny. The middle cub, slightly darker in coloring, stayed more cautious, observing from a distance. Finn named him Lix, and the largest, with a small notch in one ear, radiated pure mischief. Definitely a Nix. "You guys need enrichment," Finn muttered, reaching for a replacement filter cartridge. His hand accidentally brushed against his jacket pocket, where his maintenance laser pointer sat. 3 heads swiveled in perfect synchronization. Oh no. Oh yes. Finn pulled out the laser pointer, standard equipment for alignment checks, absolutely not designed as a toy, and flicked it on. The small red dot appeared on the floor. Pix pounced immediately, little claws clicking against metal decking. She landed on the dot, looked confused when it disappeared under her paw, then jumped back when Finn moved it 2 feet away. Lix watched from his safe distance, head tilting in that universal expression of, "What is this sorcery?" And Nix launched herself at the dot with the kind of commitment usually reserved for actual prey, sliding across the floor when she overshot and crashing into a storage container with a thump that made Finn wince. But she bounced right back up, completely unfazed, eyes locked on the red dot like it personally owed her money. "Okay," Finn said, moving the dot in slow circles. "Maybe just for a few minutes while I work." Those few minutes turned into 20, then 40. By the time Finn remembered he was supposed to be fixing atmospheric regulators, all 3 cubs were thoroughly invested in hunting the mysterious red prey that never got tired and couldn't be caught. Pix had figured out she could ambush it from elevated positions. Lix had overcome his caution and was now coordinating with his siblings for group attacks. And Nix had tried to climb the walls twice in pursuit of the dot, succeeding once and nearly giving Finn a heart attack when she jumped from 8 feet up to land perfectly on all 4 paws. "You 3 are menaces," Finn informed them, clicking off the laser pointer. "I need to actually finish this job or your parents are going to come back and eat me." 3 pairs of disappointed eyes stared at him. "Don't give me that look. I know that look. That's the 'but we're so cute, how can you resist' look," Pix chirped sadly. "No, absolutely not. I have work to— Stop that. Stop doing the sad ear thing." Lix's ears drooped even more dramatically. "You're all terrible, and I'm leaving and— Fine, 5 more minutes. But that's it." It wasn't it. By the time Enrala and Giacono returned, Finn had completed the maintenance work, barely, and the cubs were exhausted from chasing laser dots, wrestled around his toolbox, and attempting to help by stealing his equipment. He'd also acquired several small scratches from enthusiastic play that involved claws the cubs didn't quite know how to retract yet. Nrala had taken one look at her happily tired offspring, then at Finn, then back at the cubs. "They didn't bother you?" "No, they were great. Really well-behaved." Well-behaved. She'd said it like the words didn't compute. "These cubs. My cubs. Yeah, we just played a bit while I worked. Hope that's okay." Nirala's expression had been unreadable. "Maintenance complete?" "All set. Atmospheric systems running at optimal capacity." "Then thank you for your service." And that, Finn had thought, was that. Until the next day, when he returned to check his work, standard protocol for any system touching life support, and the cubs had been waiting by the door. Not waiting like coincidence. Waiting like they knew his schedule. The moment he entered, Pix tackled his ankle. Not hard, not aggressive, just the full-body enthusiasm of a young predator who'd found a new favorite playmate. "Oh no," Finn had said, even as Lix peered around a corner, and Nix dropped from the ceiling in an ambush that would have been terrifying if it wasn't so clearly playful. "You 3 remembered me," chirping sounds that definitely meant yes, and possibly also play with us or face eternal judgment. I'm supposed to be working. Pix grabbed his bootlace in her teeth and pulled. That's not fair. Nix pounced on his other foot. You're ganging up on me. Lix, emboldened by his sibling's success, crept closer and bopped Finn's knee with one paw. And Finn, who'd spent his entire childhood being manipulated by cats of various sizes and dispositions, felt his resolve crumble like wet paper. Okay, he sighed, pulling out the laser pointer, but just for a little while. And we're keeping this civilized. No climbing the human, no using claws, and absolutely no, Nix, get off my head. No climbing the human means no climbing the human. But Nix had already claimed the high ground, perched on Finn's shoulder like a furry, purring, occasionally biting parrot. It was going to be a long day. Day 2 had escalated in ways Finn should have predicted, but somehow didn't. The cubs had learned his schedule. Worse, they'd learned to anticipate it. When Finn arrived for what was supposed to be a quick diagnostic check, all 3 were positioned strategically around the quarters, like tiny apex predators planning a coordinated assault, which, it turned out, they absolutely were. Pix came from the left, Lix from the right, and Nix dropped from above in a pincer movement that would have made military strategists weep with pride. Finn went down under a pile of fur, chirps, and extremely gentle but still alarming teeth. Okay, you win. I surrender. He laughed, trying to protect his face, while 3 cubs enthusiastically welcomed him like he was the best thing that had happened all week. You guys have been practicing this. They had. And it showed. The cubs had figured out that Finn was durable in ways most species weren't, that he made entertaining noises when they pounced, and that he would play with them for as long as they wanted if they just applied enough collective cuteness. So Finn found himself engaging in what could only be described as interspecies roughhousing. The cubs would stalk him while he worked, then launch surprise attacks that he'd defend against by gently pushing them away or redirecting their pounces. They'd bite his sleeves, never breaking skin, always controlled, and he'd carefully extract himself while they chirped in victory. It was, objectively speaking, the most fun Finn had experienced in months of routine station maintenance. It was also accumulating scratches at an alarming rate. Kixon cubs had retractable claws, but the emphasis was on learning to retract. Sometimes they forgot. Sometimes they got too excited. And sometimes Nix just decided that fabric was for climbing and Finn's jacket was right there. You're going to get me in trouble, Finn told Pix as she dragged a stolen datapad across the floor like prey. That belongs to your parents. Pix chirped something that clearly meant possession is 9/10 of galactic law, and continued her theft. At least it's not important. Finn checked the datapad's display and went pale. That's a diplomatic briefing. That's a classified diplomatic briefing. Pix, give that back right now. Pix growled playfully and ran. What followed was 15 minutes of Finn chasing a cub around Kixon quarters, while Lix and Nix watched with what could only be described as amusement. Every time he got close, Pix would dart away, the datapad clamped in her jaws like a trophy. This is not a game. Your mom is going to kill me. Not metaphorically kill, literally kill. Pix finally dropped the datapad when Finn produced the laser pointer in desperation. Crisis averted, he returned the device to its charging station and made a mental note to never mention this incident to anyone ever. 10 minutes later, Lix brought him a dead station mouse. Oh, Finn said, staring at the small corpse deposited at his feet like an offering. That's thanks, I think? Lix sat back, looking enormously proud of himself. You're a very good hunter, Finn assured him, because positive reinforcement seemed important. But I don't actually eat mice. Human dietary requirements are weird like that. Disappointed chirp. I appreciate the thought, though. Really? This is very thoughtful. Licks perked up slightly, then head-butted Finn's leg in what was definitely affection and possibly also scent-marking him as part of the hunting party. Day 3, the incident day, the day that would later be referred to as the diplomatic situation, started innocently enough. Finn arrived. Cubs attacked. Standard procedure by this point. But something was different. The cubs were more energetic, more physical, more committed to the play. Pix's ambush included a full tackle that knocked Finn flat. Licks, usually cautious, went straight for a throat bite. Gentle, controlled, but still a throat bite. And Nix climbed the walls and dive-bombed him from 10 feet up. "Getting brave today," Finn wheezed, carefully extracting himself from under Pix, while Nix used his back as a launching pad. Someone's feeling confident. They were, and they wanted to play Hunt the Human with an intensity that suggested this was serious practice. Finn, because he was either very stupid or very committed to not disappointing 3 juvenile apex predators, went along with it. He hid behind equipment. They found him. He tried to escape. They cut off his roots. He climbed on furniture. They climbed better. The game evolved from simple tag into something that resembled actual predator-prey dynamics, except the prey was laughing, and the predators kept pausing to chirp excitedly when they scored a successful pounce. Somewhere during this chaos, Finn's uniform took critical damage. A sleeve tore when Nix used it for climbing. His collar ripped when Pix misjudged a grab. His pants developed several new ventilation holes courtesy of enthusiastic claw work, and the scratches accumulated. Nothing deep, nothing dangerous, but enough that Finn looked like he'd been in a fight with a rosebush that had personal grievances. Okay, time out," Finn called, breathless and laughing. "Uncle, I surrender. You 3 are the ultimate hunters, and I am defeated." Victory chirps all around. Pix climbed onto his chest, while he lay on the floor recovering. Licks curled up against his side, purring, an actual purr, deep and rumbling. And Nix flopped across his legs like a furry blanket with teeth. This was how Enrala found them. The door had opened silently, because of course Kixons could move without sound when they wanted to, and Narala stood there, frozen mid-step, staring at the scene before her. Her cubs, piled on a human, who was covered in scratches and torn clothing and appeared to be cuddling them. Finn's head had been tilted back, eyes closed, completely relaxed, despite being pinned under 3 juvenile predators. He hadn't even noticed Enrala's arrival. The cubs had, though. All 3 perked up, chirping greetings at their mother, without moving from their claimed human. Narala's tail had done something complicated. A lash, a curl, a confused swish that suggested her brain was trying to process information that didn't fit any known category. Then, very slowly, she'd backed out of the quarters and closed the door without saying a word. Finn had finally opened his eyes about 30 seconds later, noticed the cubs staring at the door, and wondered briefly if someone had been there. Nah, he'd decided. Probably nothing. Now, in the medical bay, with that same tail doing equally confused movements, Enrala listened to Finn's explanation with an expression that cycled through disbelief, concern, and something that might have been reluctant amusement. "You played hunt games," she said slowly, "with my cubs." "They started it," Finn offered, which was both true and probably not helping his case. "Hunt games are how cubs learn to kill," Giacono interjected, his voice somewhere between horrified and impressed. "They practice stalking, ambushing, Bite placement. I know. That's what made it fun. Silence. Again. Finn was getting used to these silences. Human, Nrala said very carefully. My cubs are 6 months old. At this age, their bite force can fracture bone. Their claws can penetrate standard armor plating. They are not toys. I never treated them like toys. I treated them like cubs who needed enrichment and play. By letting them hunt you. By playing with them. Yeah. You realize, Falnit interjected from across the medical bay, pulling up holographic displays, that Kixon cubs at this developmental stage have accidentally killed members of their own species during play? Their strength control is minimal. Their understanding of other species' durability is non-existent. They were gentle with me, Finn insisted. Gentle. Gormish finally found his voice. Human, you look like you were fed through a shredding machine. Surface scratches, nothing serious. Rovic's tentacles coiled so tight they looked painful. This is insanity. This is... Ambassador Nrala, I apologize for this catastrophically inappropriate breach of... Stop, Nrala said quietly, raising one clawed hand. The commander's voice died immediately. Finn, look at me. Finn met those amber eyes, expecting anger or disappointment or diplomatic fury. What he saw instead was confusion. And something else. Something that looked almost like... wonder? My cubs have never accepted an alien before, Nrala said softly. Not my diplomatic staff, not species we've known for generations, not even Kixons outside our immediate family. They are protective, territorial, aggressive to outsiders. It's instinct, survival programming from 100 generations of evolution. She moved closer, and this time Finn did tense slightly, because there was something intense in her gaze. But they played with you. They brought you gifts. They treated you like pack. Pack? Rovic's skin flashed confused yellow. The scent marking, Giacono said, nodding slowly. The grooming behaviors, the hunting practice. He looked at Finn with new assessment. They were testing you, seeing if you could keep up with cubs, if you understood the boundaries of play. And you passed, Nrala finished. Somehow, impossibly, you passed. You survived their play, matched their energy, understood their signals. You became... She paused, searching for words. Pack friend, pack companion. The first alien they've ever trusted that way. Oh, Finn said, because what else was there to say? This should not be possible, Falnit said, mandibles clicking rapidly. Humans are fragile compared to Kixons. Your pain tolerance is high, but your actual durability is apparently higher than expected. Giacono interrupted, studying Finn like he was a particularly interesting puzzle. You're a persistence hunter species, yes? Endurance-based? Evolutionarily speaking, yeah. And pack animals, social hunters. You read body language, social cues, pack dynamics. Giacono's tail swished. You treated my cubs like pack members, respected their play, understood the boundaries, didn't react with fear or aggression. I just treated them like cubs, like kittens, basically. Kittens, Nrala repeated. Small earth felines. We domesticated them thousands of cycles ago. They're similar-ish. Gormish made a sound like his brain was breaking. You compared Kixon cubs, apex predators whose species conquered 6 star systems, to domesticated earth felines? I mean, the basics are the same. Chase things, pounce on stuff, demand attention, knock objects off surfaces. They knocked objects off surfaces? Nrala's ears perked forward. Constantly. Pretty sure Nyx does it just to watch things fall. A sound escaped Nrala's throat. something the translator struggled with and finally rendered as laughter. Actual laughter. That is, yes, that sounds like Nix. Giacomo was making a similar sound. Pix stole the datapad, ran around with it for 15 minutes, thought it was prey. Both Kixon parents were definitely laughing now, and the tension in the room evaporated like morning mist. Rovic looked between the laughing apex predators, the scratched human, and his own confused security detail with the expression of someone whose universe had turned sideways. So, no diplomatic incident? No incident, Enrala confirmed, wiping at one eye with her paw. Just a human who accidentally became pack friend to 3 extremely enthusiastic cubs. She looked at Finn, her expression shifting to something thoughtful. Actually, would you be willing to continue? Continue? Finn blinked. Socializing the cubs. It's important for their development to interact with other species safely. But finding species willing to interact with Kixon cubs is, she gestured vaguely, challenging. Most species are too frightened or too fragile. But you? Her tail swished again. You're apparently neither. You want me to keep playing with them? If you're willing. Supervised, of course, and… She glanced at his scratches. Perhaps with some basic protective gear? No gear, Finn said immediately. They'll think I don't trust them. Cubs can sense that stuff. Giacomo's ears went flat. You're refusing protection? I'm saying I don't need it. They're good cubs. They're gentle. Gentle, Falnit muttered, staring at her medical scans. The human calls this gentle. I do, however, Finn added, request permission to bring better toys next time. The laser pointer is getting old. Nrala's whiskers twitched. Permission granted. Rovic looked like he wanted to object, to cite 17 different station regulations and safety protocols, to prevent what was clearly an ongoing disaster waiting for the perfect moment to escalate. But then he saw Nrala's expression, pleased, proud, genuinely grateful, and remembered that these negotiations were important, that the Kixons held trade agreements worth more than his annual station budget, that keeping them happy was literally his job. Fine, he said, his skin cycling through colors that suggested internal screaming. But I want medical staff on standby, and incident reports, and someone needs to update the insurance protocols because I guarantee humans playing with apex predator cubs violates something in the station charter. 3 hours later, Finn was back in Kixon quarters, this time with a bag full of improvised toys, feather wands made from maintenance supplies, balls of crumpled foil, string attached to interesting objects. The cubs mobbed him immediately, chirping their delight. Nrala and Giacomo watched from a comfortable distance as their offspring tackled the human, who laughed and rolled and played with the kind of fearless joy that most species reserved for activities that didn't involve potential mauling. He truly has no survival instincts, Nrala observed. And yet, he survives, Giacomo replied. Humans are strange. Humans, her mate agreed, watching Finn successfully redirect all 3 cubs into chasing a feather toy instead of his ankles, are very strange indeed. Across the station, in the security office, Gormish updated his daily log with an entry that would later become legendary among station personnel. Incident Report, Day 394. Human maintenance worker continues voluntary interaction with Kixon cubs despite significant injury risk. Ambassador Enrala has authorized ongoing contact. Medical staff remains on standby. Commander Rovic has updated station insurance 6 times. Note to future security personnel. Humans will befriend anything with fur, claws, and teeth. Do not attempt to stop them. It never works. Also, do not try to replicate this behavior yourselves. You are not humans. You will die. And at the bottom, in smaller text, seriously, you will die. Don't do it. The galaxy, Goramish had learned, ran on many principles: physics, economics, cultural exchange, diplomatic protocol. But apparently, it also ran on humanity's unshakable conviction that everything, even apex predators, just needed a good belly rub and some quality playtime. And honestly, watching Finn emerge from Kixon quarters 20 minutes later, covered in new scratches but grinning like he'd just had the best day of his life, while 3 cubs chirped goodbye from the doorway. Maybe the humans were onto something after all, or maybe they were just completely insane. Gormish decided it was probably both.